The following is based on a true story.
The moment my buddy Daryl heard I was going to Japan, he dared me with a sparkle in his eye. "Dude, you're not really going to Japan unless you visit the suicide forest. I dare you to go there." The mention of the place brought back spine-tingling memories of a documentary I'd once seen. It was supposed to be one of the most haunted places on Earth, and just thinking about it was unsettling. "Yeah, kinda rings a bell. But I'm mainly sticking around Tokyo," I said, trying to steer clear of the subject. But Daryl wouldn't stop. "Hey, you gotta go, man, it's really spooky." Though scared, curiosity pulled at me. The thought of walking among those haunted trees intrigued me. I've been learning Japanese for fun, and I thought going to Japan would be cool. It wasn't just about seeing the sights. I wanted to get to know the place, the legends, and the people. Learning the language was a way for me to get closer to all that stuff. The moment I arrived in Tokyo, it was a sensory overload. The city was a blend of old temples and neon signs, filled with the aroma of street food and the city's busy sounds. I was ready to explore, with the eerie forest always in the back of my mind. That evening, I found myself in a cozy izakaya. It was a bustling Japanese-style pub. The place was packed and noisy, filled with laughter and chatter. I settled into a tiny chair surrounded by wooden tables, paper lanterns, and the mouth-watering scent of grilled meat. I ordered chicken teriyaki with a cold asahi, thinking life's good. I was flipping through pictures of the suicide forest on my phone, captivated by the eerie darkness, when a woman named Kiko sitting next to me caught a glimpse. "Aokigahara? Really? You're going there?" she asked, her eyes widening. Caught by surprise, I smiled and said, "Heard about it. I was just curious. Wasn't really planning to go." Her friend Hiroshi leaned in, his face serious. "People vanish there. Not like magic, they're just gone." Kiko's voice dropped to a whisper. "Haunted by lost souls. Families used to leave their old folks there, hoping for luck. Now the spirits linger, waiting, angry." Trying to shake off the chills, I joked, "Ghost stories, huh?" Hiroshi looked at me, his eyes serious. "The forest, man, it's different. The ground's silent and the trees block the sun. It's unsettling." "I don't believe in ghosts," I answered politely, trying to sound brave. Kiko's eyes were filled with genuine concern. "If you go, please be careful. It's easy to get lost. And trust me, no one will hear you if you scream." A shiver ran through me, a mix of excitement and fear. Scribbling the suicide forest in my journal, I was still debating whether or not I should brave this adventure. As I walked through Shinjuku the next morning, I heard the city buzz all around me, but all I could think of was the suicide forest. Even just saying its name, I felt like I was whispering in a loud room. By late morning, I couldn't resist. I decided to hop on a bus to get there. The ride took about 3 hours. As I stared out, all I could hear in my head were creepy stories about the forest. They said it's like a big green ocean of trees, so packed together. But what scared me was hearing that lots of people go there and never come back. I remembered what Kiko talking about last evening. Old folks were left there in the forest to die. They had a word for it, ubasute. I had to admit, even though I didn't believe in the supernatural, I felt a shiver when I thought about those lost souls. When the bus stopped, I transferred to another for the forest trailhead. There, I saw abandoned cars and felt the strange ground beneath my feet, soft like a sponge. I entered the forest in the mid-afternoon. I looked up in the sky. A few rain clouds were gathering. A voice in my head warned, "Don't stay too long. Get out before it's dark." Just a few steps in, and I already felt a change. The ground seemed to pull at my feet, urging me to go deeper. The city's noise was gone, swallowed by the forest. All I could hear were birds and the sound of the gentle stream along my path. There was also this soft, almost human whisper of leaves brushing against each other in a breeze. The air smelled of wet dirt and moss, with a hint of something rotting. I felt cooler, my skin tingling, and bumps forming. I stepped on the soft ground. Twigs snapped. The trees were close. Dark shapes moved on the ground. The sun couldn't get through. The forest seemed to eat the light. About 15 minutes in, I noticed there was a restricted area. It wasn't blocked off by some heavy-duty gates or something. It was simply a rope tied around from one tree to another, with a sign saying, "Do not enter." Without a second thought, I lift up the rope and entered the restricted zone. I wanted to take some pictures to show off to my buddy Daryl. Along the way, I saw these old red ribbons tied to trees. They looked worn out. It seemed to me that they were markers so that people could find their way out. I touched one, and it felt chilly, maybe from rain. As I gave it a little pull, I couldn't help but wonder, who put this here? What happened to them? As I walked deeper, things got weirder. There were old tents just left there, a creepy doll nailed to a tree, and clothes that looked like they'd been there for ages. Man, was I spooked. So much for me acting tough in front of Hiroshi the night before. As I continued to explore, I tripped over something. It was an old shoe half buried under the leaves. I was looking at it thinking, who leaves just one shoe? I looked around to see if there was the mate. Suddenly, I heard this faint laughter. I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Near the shoe, there were these old photos of people laughing. How could anyone laugh here? I felt like someone was watching me, but I couldn't see anyone. Then, right in front of me, there was this open space, and no joke, a noose. Hanging from a tree, the rope swinging with nothing around. I saw a diary nearby filled with frantic scribbles like, "The voices won't stop, and why am I even here?" The words seemed to echo the desperate thoughts of someone lost in the forest. The sky started to turn very dark. The rain had started. First a few drops, then it started to pour heavily. I freaked out, realizing I'd been there way longer than I thought. Like, where did those 2 hours go? I needed to get out, fast. Then it felt like the whole forest woke up. The trees, they were going nuts, their leaves making this super loud noise. It sounded like they were trying to tell me something. The air got super cold, making me shiver. And the smell, like that musty smell of an old room mixed with the scent of wet earth. A big gust of wind blew right into my face. It was like walking into an icebox, and I could smell the heavy rain in the air. Shadowy shapes started to form all around me. I didn't know what they were, but there were more and more of them, just staring. I even saw some that looked like they were hanging from the trees. The noose I saw a moment ago had a person hanging around it now. I couldn't look anymore, it was too much. Then the quietest sounds like whispers were all around me. They sounded sad, lost, and even angry. My heart was racing so loud I could hear it. Everything started looking the same, and I felt super stuck. Suddenly, I heard a clear shout. Turning, I saw her. A young woman in a traditional kimono blue with pale pink flowers, looking worn and faded. Her hair was jet black, pulled up in a neat bun, but a few stray strands hung limply across her pale face. Her eyes were wide, filled with a mix of fear and confusion, like a deer caught in headlights. It was weird seeing someone dressed so old-fashioned in this place. She looked just as freaked out as I felt. "Michi ni mayo imashita," she shouted. I understood what she was saying. She was as lost as I was. She felt trapped too. I knew we had to stick together. "We need to stay together," I told her in my shaky Japanese. She looked at me, and in those frightened eyes, I saw a glimmer of hope. She nodded quickly. Ghostly shadows started getting real close. They looked clearer now, with the dark sky behind them. Suddenly, a cold hit me. It was like when you open the freezer in the middle of summer. I heard their whispering all around me. They sounded like someone with a scratchy throat was talking right next to my ear, their cold breath making my neck tingle. Every tiny sound, like leaves or sticks breaking, made me jump. The rain was getting heavier. Both the Japanese lady and I were soaked. I tried to find my way back, but the rain was blurring my sight. The sky was nearly pitch black. It was hard to see anything. My heart was beating even faster. The smell of rot in the air made me want to gag. Then the Japanese lady pointed to a stream. "Go that way," she whispered so quietly I could barely hear. I nodded and we started following the water. I started feeling hopeful. Following the stream was our way out. Then I saw the entrance of the trailhead where I came in from. I ran to it thinking about getting to safety, but when I looked back, the young woman was just standing by the stream, her shape getting all blurry with a soft white glow. I shouted at her to come to the exit, but she just smiled and gave a low bow. Then, this thick fog came in, and she was gone. Despite the heaving rain, it felt more silent than ever. That's when it hit me. The forest wasn't just creepy, because of stories. It was the lost spirits, like that woman in the fancy kimono, that made it really haunted. I stood at the edge of the forest, realizing that the woman in the kimono had to be a spirit. I felt a chill, but also deeply thankful. She had helped me, even though she was lost and sad herself. Her eyes, filled with kindness, seemed to stick in my mind. They made me feel connected to something bigger and mysterious. The forest wasn't just a creepy place anymore. It was where I had met someone who was no longer alive, but still cared. Her face and that sad smile stayed with me, and I knew I'd remember her long after I'd left the forest. Back in Tokyo, with all the bright lights and noise, it felt so different from the quiet, dark forest. But all I could think of was her calm face and her goodbye bow. I kept thinking about how close I'd come to being one of those lost souls, and the idea that she and others were still waiting there, stuck, made me feel all weird inside. That night, sitting in a cozy bar, I held up my cold beer. Without saying a word, I toasted to the mystery of the forest, to the souls trapped there, and especially to her, the young woman in the fancy dress who showed me the way out.